is it okay to speak English? Everybody's okay with English? Excellent. So, first of all, I'll introduce my team that came a long way with me. Some of them for the first time in Poland. So, Marco is the technical lead. He's from Italy. Just flew in last night. Steve Hutchings, he's my director. He's based in the UK. And Vinik, where are you from? I was confused. Is it from London? Okay. So Vinik is also from UK, and he's sales development. So I'm the regional representative. My name is Stas. With technical questions, you can go to Marco. With the rest of the questions, go to me or my team. And I'm not going to bore you too much. I'm not a technical person at all, okay? And I'm not going to be boring you with the marketing and sales pitch. I'll let Marco do the job. You know, show you the technology, how it works. All I will do in just a few minutes, I will tell you the story of Zerto, okay? And it can sound a bit strange, right? Small piece of software. And what kind of story can it have? But we have a story, and I'm going to tell it to you in a minute. And then I'm going to tell you how we're doing in Poland, what we're doing, and how we see our business in Poland developing, from last September and for the next few years. So, as I said, I'm not a technical person at all. Don't come to me with technical questions. I had nothing to do with technology before I came to Zerto 2 years ago. I was doing something completely different. I was looking for a PR agency. And then guys from Zerto, they came to me and they explained me how this software is going to change the way people do things on a very, very high level in the market. So from the marketing perspective, and from the perspective of how relationships are built in the market, how you see your relationship with the vendor and with other technology, this software, this company, it brings a significant change to how you will be doing it in the future. And on the same time, though, it does not require you to make a huge internal change in the infrastructure. So it's a disruptive technology in terms of what it does to the market. But it's not disruptive technology when you talk about your environment, because easy to install, no downtime, you don't have to reconfigure anything. So basically all you need to have a mission critical application that is virtualized that you need to protect. It doesn't have to be mission critical, it just have to be virtual application. Okay? So when I started, and why are we going to do that? I'll just explain you on a very high level how we're going to be doing it. So before Zerto came to the market 4 years ago, let's say, or something like that, you had only one choice of doing a proper disaster recovery. And it was going, let's say you had well, EMCs are here, sorry guys. Let's say you had an EMC storage, okay? So the only way you could do disaster recovery, you had to go to EMC and buy another storage from them. You had to go to VMware, buy a second vCenter. You have to buy the replication software. You had to buy SRM. And if you want a backup, you had to buy something else. So you have these three, or at least three, so it's 3 or 4 complicated products that you need to manage. And it's only because you want to just protect some applications that are virtualized. So when Zerto came to the market, the only thing it did, very simple, brought it to the virtual layer. So brought the real disaster recovery, or all the functionality of storage-based replication with SRM on top of it, brought it to the virtual level. So you can have all you have with this set of products just on virtual level. And this small change absolutely changes the way you do things, right? Because now it doesn't matter what kind of storage you have on the second side, so you're independent of the vendor, of your storage vendor. Doesn't matter what hypervisor you have on the second side, because we can do cross-hypervisor replication. It doesn't matter what the distance is between the, it doesn't matter, pretty much nothing matters, right? If you have the application, you have some kind of link that you can, well, of course, technical limitations there, but if you have some kind of link that you want to, that you can transfer the changes that we do to the other side, then that's it, you're done. So one technology installs in 1.5 hours, very easy to manage, one person can manage everything, and it represents a platform for disaster recovery. So a few products 4 products in one piece of software. And that is why today you're going to be dealing differently with the vendors. If you go this direction of virtualization. So, and every time I start in a new market, there is a skepticism. Because some people, or many people, find it, let's say, I don't know, too good to be true, it can be working, especially in Israel. So when I work in Israel, I'm from Israel, people are very argumentative, you know, and they want to challenge you, and so we're very challenged in many countries, because people just think that's, well, it's too good to be true. So the only way to, of course, see it is try it, but another way to see it is to see how we develop inside the market. So when I started in Poland, it was end of September last year. We had 0 customers. We invested 0 marketing money to develop the region. No people on the ground. Our competitors have tens and sometimes hundreds of people on the ground. But from end of September until today, what, 8 months? We have around 20 customers in Poland. From 15 to 20, I don't remember the number. Some of them are big, some of them are small. But I see that the market is very, very excited about us and accepts us, understands the added value. So I find Polish market in particular fascinating, and it responded very well to us entering. So I see it as a from my perspective, as a great success, and this year is going to be even better. But that's everywhere we go. Everywhere we go, that's pretty much how it happens. And I guess that's all I wanted to tell you, so far. We'll have the full day. If you have any questions at all, come to me. If you need some kind of information. But now I'm going to hand it to Marco, who's going to show you.
Before you hand over to Stas, everyone Steve mentioned walks around and giving you a form to fill out. It's not just for fun. At the front there's a set of speakers, headphones.
Oh yeah, of course.
They're local. So if you fill out the form, hand it back in to us at the back here, and at the end we'll do a raffle and you get a chance to win.
Of course. Thank you, Steve. So that's the lottery. Everybody can win it. You have pretty good chances because so far only like 10 people registered. So I suggest you all register there. And when are you going to win this amazing set of headphones? Okay? Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you for joining. Sorry for English. You know that most of the time salespeople are liars. Sorry, guys. So I try to show you if they are liar or not. I try to explain what Zerto is, what Zerto does. Zerto has a main focus, that is business continuity disaster recovery, in a very simple way. Was born from people from EMC, and by the way, I'm coming from EMC as well. And now we are trying to change the market in terms of approach for disaster recovery with a very simple and scalable and reliable solution. I don't want to go over a lot of marketing stuff, stuff like that. I want to show you which is the technology behind Zerto. I was working, and if we have time, a very quick demo just to show you that is really, really simple to install, to manage, and to guarantee to you that you have a product that is able to guarantee the disaster recovery in a very simple way. As Stas said before, there is a lot of solutions that do this kind of job. You can have different approach. You can have storage replication. You can have software replication. You can have a lot of products that merge together can give you this type of result. With Zerto, the main goal is that you have only one pane of glass, and from this interface, you can manage everything in terms of disaster recovery. So we will have a very small introduction about the architecture, solution overview, and then the quick demo, as I told you. One of the main steps that we had in the past is the storage-based replication. You have, I don't know, to DNS, to NetApp, to HDS, whatever you want. Most of the time you need the same model, or at least the same vendor, just to guarantee the storage replication. But we can see that there is some constraint and some lock-in in terms of storage replication, because as I told you, you need the same stuff to replicate between different storage, or you need to add some other piece of software or hardware, and then EMC is able to do that with some other solution. So this is a different approach, but in any case, there is some big limitation in terms of replication with the storage. And the best thing is that now we are talking about software-defined data center. So why we are able to move all the solution in terms of software in the right place of the stack, and the replication is still based on the storage. That's not good. It's not the right place. So the idea is that we want to avoid this type of lock-in, and we want to move the replication in the right place in the stack. So we want to move the replication feature at the hypervisor level. Of course, we are talking about VMware mainly, so you can see that there is a couple of vCenters. VMware is very, very powerful, and most of the time you can find it in production. But, I mean, the game is changing. Sometimes there is some end user that are looking for some other hypervisor as well, maybe for cost reason, maybe because they don't want to double the cost in production and disaster recovery. So we are able to guarantee replication between different versions of VMware. So you can have 4.something and 6.0 in a different place. And we can even guarantee cross-replication between different hypervisors. You can have, I know that maybe you don't like it, but there's someone that is looking for a system center and Hyper-V at the disaster recovery side for cost reason. And the world is thinking, and many people are thinking about this kind of approach. So the best way is try to replicate what's happened at the main side, at the disaster recovery side. You can have only few VMs replicated at the disaster recovery side, because maybe you don't need all the environment at the disaster recovery side, because your business needs are not related to all the VM that you have in production when you are in disaster recovery partners. And the granularity with Zerto is very high. You don't have any type of constraint related to LUN replication, array replication, storage replication. You can replicate from one VM to many VM in the same consistency group that for us is the virtual protection group. And you can replicate what you want at the disaster recovery side. Only one marketing slide just to guarantee that yes, we are kind of startup, but we have already a lot of customers in place, big, small. We have a lot of customers already active. We have some relation with cloud service provider, and we have more than 600 channel partners that could help our customer in disaster recovery procedures. So, as we told you before, we can have the private cloud solution. So if you want to create your disaster recovery plan between your headquarter and another disaster recovery site, you can do that based on VMware. You can do that based on Hyper-V. Or you can do that in a cross-replication. So the main thing is that you don't need to convert the VM at the disaster recovery site, but the replication is leveraging the API inside Hyper-V. So you have the same VM, the same operating system at the disaster recovery site, but based in a different file format. So you don't have anymore the VM in VMware format, but you have the VHD at the disaster recovery site natively. So we don't need to convert and lose time in conversion. We can have multiple offices that are leveraging the headquarter or the disaster recovery site as well in a mixed environment with different hypervisor, with different version and different solution as well at the same time. At any distance, Zerto has been designed for long distance, and we will see Infuse Light, which is the technology behind. So we don't need to wait. Oh, yes.
Just one question: how do you handle the, VMware uses VMware tools and Hyper-V uses some Hyper-V
host integration tools?
Yeah.
Yeah, leveraging the native API. When we create the VM, we can leveraging the API, creating the VM at the disaster recovery site. Yes, you have to install the if you want leveraging this tool. You can power it up the VM, because we don't present the VM at the disaster recovery site in system center inventory. You can present this VM during the failover procedure, and you can install, or we can even script the installation of the host integration tool with our dashboard. So you can have the host integration tool at the disaster recovery site. Of course, there is few limitation, but it's not related to Zerto. There is some feature that are available in VMware that are not available in Hyper-V. So we have to, you have to understand what is available and what is not, but it's not related to replication solution, it's related to different technology. We have a matrix that you can scan to understand which is the right conversion, and we support about more or less all the version in VMware, and we support only 2012 release 2 for Hyper-V, because 2008 was not so stable, so we decided to cut it and just support 2012.
And I guess it's the same for the virtual hardware, because you have to convert from VMware virtual hardware to Hyper-V.
Yes, this is easier because when you are talking in terms of virtual hardware, it's something that is already related inside the API, so you don't need to install anything, because when you create the VM, the virtual hardware is assigned by the hypervisor. When you have to talk with
but I guess there are probably some devices that do not exist in Hyper-V.
Yeah,
vice
that's the
versa,
point.
so
That's the point.
it won't be identical, right?
That's the point. Any distance, as I was talking before, because there is no needs of feedback from the disaster recovery side. So you can even, we have some customers in US that are replicating VM from East Coast to West or the opposite. So it's not a problem in terms of latency, because we don't need the handshaking and the feedback from the other side. So this could be an option for very long distance. We have, as I told you, many Zerto cloud service provider that could help if you don't want to double the investment for the disaster recovery side. So this could be an hybrid solution, or we can have a pure public solution. At this stage, we are supporting Amazon AWS as a disaster recovery target. In the near future, we should have Microsoft Azure as well, so you can leverage this kind of approach if you don't want to have anything in terms of disaster recovery hardware. Yes, please.
Yeah, but as far as I know, the AWS is only one way. Right?
Yes and no. For this moment, we have all the features available for VMware and Hyper-V in terms of feedback. With AWS, we have a manual feedback. So if you want to come back from Amazon AWS, you have to do something in terms of manual scripting. But in the next version,
it is in the roadmap.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that's fine.
You can feedback from AWS if you want to bring the VM that you powered on in the cloud. If you want to bring back to your infrastructure, yes, correct. In terms of replication, one of the questions that sometimes pop up is the limitation in terms of bandwidth. Please think that this is a completely different approach that you can have in terms of backup. We are not talking about a backup solution where you need a backup window. This is a continuous data protection. This is a continuous flow of information that are coming from the primary side or production side, call it as you want, to the disaster recovery side. So we don't have this kind of impact in terms of backup windows as a standard backup solution that maybe is able to leverage in given the replication snapshot base. We send only the information that are coming from the hypervisor in terms of I/O to the storage. So that's the reason why we need a very small bandwidth, generally speaking. 5 megabits is the minimum request from our side. So, I mean, I know that 5 megabits is meaningless if we don't have all the information about what's happening at the production site, because if we have VMs that are doing nothing, 5 megabits could be even too much. If we have a very powerful Oracle infrastructure that is doing a lot of transaction, 5 megabits could be very, very low bandwidth. So we have the Van Sizer is an application that you can leverage to understand, generally speaking, not only for Zerto purpose, to understand which is the change rate in your VMware environment. So you can have an idea and you can design the right bandwidth if you can do that. Or you have, in any case, the opportunity to understand how will be the RPO for your infrastructure related to the change rate of your VMs. So in terms of deployment, it's very, very simple. We need the Zerto Virtual Manager that at this stage is a Windows-based VM from 2003 to 2012. You can install our application, you can download from our website, from our support portal. And this is pretty much everything that you need to do in terms of installation. When this installation is finished, you have the access to the graphical user interface. From the graphical user interface, you can deploy our core technologies that are the virtual replication appliance, one for every ESX or Hyper-V that you want to protect. So we need one Zerto virtual manager to talk with vCenter and few vArrays, one for every ESX that you want to protect. But you don't have to do pretty anything. You can deploy directly from the graphical user interface. You need only to assign a free IP, static IP, it's better. Work even in the ACP, but it's possible to assign a static IP is better. One for every ESX, as I told you. The same situation at the disaster recovery site, and you can join the two ZVM. By the way, this is the standard configuration for two sites, but two virtual centers are not mandatory. We can even work with only one. So if you have one vCenter that is managing production and the disaster recovery site, we can support this kind of configuration. We don't need two vCenter as a mandatory solution.
Sorry? I have two questions. One about the public cloud from the site before. It's only AWS or also, I don't know, Azure or because there?
At this stage, only AWS. Azure is in the roadmap. Cloud Air, I have no idea at this stage.
Okay, and what about the integrity of the replication? The link is slow. What will be the state of the VM replicated? Will not have any differences?
The RTO is going to be affected.
Yeah. Yes. When we replicate the VM at the disaster recovery site, generally speaking, forget for 1 second the cloud version, and I will explain you why. When we create the VM at the disaster recovery site, we create only a file, a VMDK, talking in terms of VM. And this file is assigned as a disk at the vArray at the disaster recovery site, technically speaking. So you don't see anything in terms of vCenter inventory or data store, because everything is there. And this is possible because the vArray is a standard VM and is able to manage this VMDK. When we are talking about AWS, we replicate the information from VMware to AWS. We write the information through AWS to S3 in terms of repository. So S3 is where the VM is sitting. And when we go in disaster recovery mode, we promote the VM from S3 to AC2, that is the powerful version of storage in Amazon, and we power it on the VM. This kind of step needs some minutes to be in place. So if you have RTO in terms of minutes in a standard environment with VMware or Hyper-V, you can have an RTO that is below 1 hour with AWS. But this is not related to Zerto, it's related to Amazon in terms of conversion.
So you said that the disk is actually attached to the array on the other side.
Yeah.
So it means that the number of disks is limited by the number of potential targets on the array.
Yeah, it's 1,500 for every VRA. So that problem, if you have more than 1,100 VMDK for every VRA, means that you have very...
I don't know how it works on Hyper-V, but on VMware you can have only, can't remember now, a limited number of controllers and then limited number of targets, which is probably less than 1,000 anyway.
Yes and no, you're right, but Zerto technology is able to create a shadow VRA that is another instance that is not leveraging
VRA helper.
Yeah, is not leveraging
So then we multiply the number of VRAs.
Yeah,
Yes, exactly.
Have you got any method to predict what bandwidth will be necessary on the basis of the inventory and RTO?
Yes, that's the
Yes,
one size.
yes, the one sizer you can download from the website. There is few instruction. It's a very stupid Excel file, to be honest. But we are leveraging the information from vCenter. You can move the verbosity in vCenter from 1 to 2 or from 0 to 1. I don't remember right now.
Why didn't you include it in the management platform?
Good question. I can suggest to.
Well, because it all depends. You need to put the information how many IOs in average you have.
But I suppose I can see your management platform is connected to vCenter.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah,
can you
technically,
could analyze
technically we
possible,
can do that. Yes, technically we can do that. To be honest, at this stage, we are focusing on many other features that we will see in a few months. That's a good idea. I would suggest to our PMs. Could be a good option.
Sorry.
I have a question. How many resources does every helper VM consume on every host?
Yeah, good question. In terms of space, this VRA is about 12 gigabytes enough, so very small. And in terms of resources, you can see in a production environment that in terms of CPU, you have from 4 to 6% in terms of CPU, so not so big. And in terms of memory, you can install one VRA from 1 gigabyte to 16 gigabytes of memory. But generally speaking, with a standard environment with less than 500 VMs, you can install with only 3 or 4 gigabytes in terms of RAM for every VRA. So it's not a big impact. Generally speaking, you can see the impact only with something that is benchmark application. You are not able to see in terms of.
I have an experience with Zerto, so I can say that the impact is only when you start doing the DR process.
Yeah, because
that's when it happens, but or the initial sync. That's it.
But the initial sync is only in terms of more or less in terms of bandwidth.
A one-off.
If you don't pre-seed, there is an option that is the pre-seed. If you have already the data that is on the recovery side for any reason, maybe for backup purpose, you can pre-seed the information and align all the differences. But in terms of resources, the impact is very low. You have to consider that you have one Windows VM in addition, but it's pretty standard VM. So no big impact in terms of resources, and few VRA.
So just to add on to the VRA bit, it's a scalar architecture with memory and band. So the whole point is that you can start small, and as your business grows, you add the computing power as you grow. We're trying to get away from that big bang approach where you look at something, you have to design and do a massive approach and based on something you don't need in the future. So this is all about scalar architecture. I think there's going to be a lot of technical questions in terms of how we work with Amazon, how it actually converts into Hyper-V. My recommendation, if it goes with the floor, is that we take some of these questions and come to us at the stand. We have a limited time here. Really what we want to do is just give you a good overview of the architecture, but also show you it working, because I think when you see how quickly it is to set this up and actually have it working, that will answer a number of your questions as well.
One question.
Last one. Trust me, we love questions. If they give us an extra hour, we'd go all day.
I think it's important. Do you have a limitation about RPO?
So just getting on to the RPO, and I can talk to you about some of my customers between New York and London. The average RPO that we stand by, and some of the guys here have tested it, people here have in production, we stand by as an organisation less than 10 seconds. Our RTO on an average application is less than 2 minutes.
On ours it's 4 or 5 seconds.
I'll give you an easy one. London to New York, set up and working in less than an hour. Singapore to London, still lower than 10 seconds RPO. And the great thing is all of you here can download the software free of charge and put it in your own environment and test it in less than 45 minutes.
How strong are your relationships with vendors of hypervisors? Don't you afraid that...
So they love us. And the reason being is, if you look at it from a VMware side, we've got Hyper-V. They want to convert Hyper-V into VMware. VMware wants to do Hyper-V, right? Storage guys want to do the same as well.
Yes,
do you know what?
But they have their own competitive product, SRM. So
Yeah.
Don't you afraid that next upgrade will spoil something in your platform?
I think it's
I think
the best one.
fundamentally, guys, if you look at the architecture, what we've done, it's about the replication engine that we've installed, yeah? If you look at, I'm an old storage guy, right? There's 2 mechanisms for replication. One is snapshot, and we all know the limitation there. The second is synchronization, yeah? And really what we've done is the old technologies are based solely on those 2 components. We've eradicated that.
Yeah,
So in terms of
one thing about competition, so I don't think there's a business in the world without competition. So the only thing I wanted to add on this point that, well, SRM and other competitors that been around.
Stas, do you know what? I don't think we should talk about our competition in our slide deck today. I think the technology sells itself. Yes, I think it's a good opportunity to respect what VMware and EMC do. We've just got a new approach, guys, and if you look at it, the approach we've taken, and the key thing you take away, we have been in production now for 4.5 years. The market is coming towards us. We started this hypervisor replication, and you're probably going to hear today and from other companies you're going to talk to, that's the way the market wants to go. The great thing is, it's fully baked and it works. It's been in production for 4.5 years. So in terms of speed, keep the questions coming, but we will kind of, if we start going into hard detail, if we could come see us at the back hall, we'll come see you one-on-one. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Very quickly, so one question. Very quickly, just to show you what is possible to do, and then the quick demo we have, I suppose, about half an hour or something like that. So the main goal is the replication of the live failover. If I have an accident, if I have an issue in my primary site, we can replicate the VM at the opposite one, and we can restart the VM at the opposite one in very few minutes, seconds. It depends on the RTO of the boot order that you selected during the creation of the VPG. Maybe you need that the database is up and running before the application server to be able to have some information from the database. So you need to select the boot order when you create the VPG, and we will see in a few seconds. Okay. The standard, as we already discussed about that, but we are able to copy the information from one side to another one. So we have the writes IO from the hypervisor to the storage, and our VRA is able to replicate the information. As you can see, there is no feedback from this way, and this is important in terms of latency because we don't need specific connection in terms of latency. If you have to wait for the feedback, sometimes could be a problem if you want to guarantee very high speed writes even at the primary site. We can see that some customers are approaching new solution like StreamIO or QStorage or Violin just to be very quick in production. So if you have this kind of approach and you have to wait for the feedback, this could be a very impacting solution, and that's the reason why we want to avoid this, and even because it's been designed for very long distance. So you can replicate from this building to that one, but you can even replicate from Warsaw to, I don't know, London or Paris or New York, whatever you want.
So what happens when there is a break in communication? Is there any method of
absolutely
checking integration of
yeah, it's very reliable because if there is any, generally speaking, maybe there is not only an issue, but could be a bandwidth overlapping with other applications, so we can have some issue in terms of bandwidth. We create a very small map in terms of the array. We create a map of about 8 megabytes, so very small. We don't double the information. We only mark the blocks that has been changed in every VM. And when the bandwidth will be available again, we will send the information at the opposite side, and we can guarantee the right order. If this problem is still not only a stupid overlapping, but is a real problem, we can guarantee this type of approach until we fool the memory of the VRA. Then, if for any reason it's not possible to restart the communication because the link is broken, then you need to do a delta syncing. That is a kind of another syncing of the VM, of course. I go very quickly. But this is important. This is the main concept in terms of Zerto. That is the main difference that you have with some other replication tool. When you replicate a VM with some other tools, you replicate a single VM that is not related to anything in your infrastructure. You are replicating a VM that is a standalone VM at the opposite side. We are able to create replication for very complex services. Most of the time, a complex service is not managed by only one VM. It's managed by many VMs, and there is some relation between these VMs. These VMs could be in different arrays. from different brands, with different performance, and they are, generally speaking, up and running in different DSX, of course. But we can create the kind of group that is like a consistency group in the storage. We create the virtual protection group. Every VM, technically speaking, has a journal at the disaster recovery site. So we create the VMDK and the journal for every VM. But if you put this 2, 3, 4, it depends on you. It depends on how complex is your service. You can create a group of this VM, and this journal will be aligned with a kind of checkpoint, and you can restart from this checkpoint all the VM in this group. It's easier to show than to explain. So I will show you in a few minutes. We can manage by design the crash IO consistency, but if you want to guarantee an application consistency, we can do that in 2 ways. One is VSS, so if you have Microsoft application, we can leverage the volume shadow service. If you have, just for an instance, Oracle installed in a Linux VM, you know better than me, there is no VSS for Linux, so it's not possible to do that. But we can manage some script inside the VM, the bash way, in command line interface. You can create a script, just for an example, to put in not backup mode the Oracle database, and you can send parameters from our dashboard inside the VM. Of course, we don't install anything inside the VM. The only way to talk inside the VM are VMware tools or host integration tools. So the request is that this VM has VMware tools installed. We already talked about different configuration, different storage. We can have the VMs in a very different configuration, in different arrays with different technology. We already talked about the pre-seed if you want to save the bandwidth. So if you already have the information on the disaster recovery side. And we support every kind of feature that you can have in VMware, like vMotion, storage vMotion, HA, availability, everything. We have a plugin for vCenter if you want. You can activate or not inside vCenter. And when you select the VM in vCenter, you can see in our plugin if this VM is protected or not protected. You can create directly a VPG from vCenter if you want. Of course, for the full client or for the web client as well. This is the interface that you can leverage if you want to select a specific recovery point. You can create manually, or you can have the list of the checkpoint in the journal, so you can create, you can select what you want in any point in time. And it's like a DVR. You can go back in time and select the right moment that you want. Just for an example, if you want to do a kind of OS upgrade, you can insert manually a checkpoint, and it's 2 seconds. You have the checkpoint in the journal. It's not a snapshot, so you don't need to open, manage, close, and delete the snapshot. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not good, and you can have some kind of zombie in your storage. And another point that I want to underline is that you don't need any space at the primary side, because if you have to manage the snapshot, you need space at the primary side to store the snapshot. With Zerto, you replicate the IOs, so you don't need extra space. There is a cost, of course, at the primary side. You only replicate information, so you need only space because you have another copy of the VMDK at the disaster recovery side. So you can protect your environment, not only in terms of disaster recovery related to hardware failure, but even from logical failure. Maybe you want to do an upgrade of the operating system and you have an issue related to a patch or something like that. You can go back at the right time before the upgrade. This is the interface. I don't go deeper because we can see during the demo. This is the interface, but just to let you know what we are seeing now. The status of our VPGs, the number of VPGs, how many VMs are protected. This is a very stupid infrastructure with few VMs, but we can have very complex environment. The number of gigabytes protected, but the most interesting one is this one, 8 seconds RPO, means that average these 4 VPGs has an RPO that is 8 seconds. So it means that it's very close to 0. Sometimes we can see 3, 4 seconds. 0 is not possible because it's not designed to work in this way. Yeah, it's not designed to work in this way, but it's possible to have something very, very close to 0. And you can have 2 options here. One is, maybe you are not able to see, but trust me, this is live and this is test. So if you go in live failover, it means that you are moving the information in terms of restart the VM at the disaster recovery site, delete the VM at the primary site if the primary site is still available. And when I say delete, it means delete from the inventory in the center. And if you activate the reverse protection, that is only one flag, you can see the VM that will be deleted from the inventory and will be protected by the VRA. So you are changing the way, and you can do the failback very easily. If you move to test, you can do pretty the same, but the production is not impacted at all. You can have the same VM up and running at the disaster recovery site, and the primary one is not aware that there is another instance at the disaster recovery site. And this VM could be configured in a very different way in terms of data store, in terms of networking, because we can change all the network infrastructure configuration at the disaster recovery site. You can change the IP, you can change the subnet, the DNS. You can create a new MAC address just to avoid any overlapping. Because for me, the other site is disaster recovery, but for someone else it could be the primary. So I don't want to have any kind of overlapping. And one thing that is important, in my opinion, is that if you do this kind of test, you can create a report in terms of auditing where there is the exact amount of time that you need for the RTO. So you can say, I did the test in few minutes, hours, it depends on the complexity of the environment, and I can guarantee to my colleagues, my manager, I don't know, my customer, if I'm acting as a service provider, that the RTO is exactly this amount of time. It's not maybe, or I suppose that, no, it's exactly this amount of time. Very few configuration. You can select the checkpoint and you can see, you are not able to see, but here there is the policy that could be auto commit, rollback, or do nothing, and we will see in a few seconds from the GUI maybe it's better. So just click start failover and you can move the VM in very few seconds. We already discussed about the very different approach, real failover, test failover. We already discussed about that. Move, there is another option, that is move a data center, maybe for data center relocation or for conversion. As Steve said before, you can convert VM from one hypervisor to another one, or you can move the VM from one site to another one. If you want, there is even a specific license for this type of approach, but I won't go deeper on that. But you can even approach the data center migration in this way. And even if you have different hypervisor version, maybe you have VMware, but with different version in the site, you can manage this very easily in terms of data center migration. And the failback is very simple, because it's exactly the same features in terms of failover. You can do the opposite and go back in production with the failback. Last but not least, we have the kind of third copy protection. This could be important if you want to have a protection that is not only with the journal, related to the journal. Our journal can protect the VM from 1 hour to 120 hours, 5 days. And in the next version will be from 1 hour to 30 days in terms of journal. But if you want to save the VM decay for 1 year, we can copy the VM decay that we have at the disaster recovery site, and we can move to an SMB share. That could be a data domain, a quantum, a low price NAS connected in CIFS or NFS. So it's up to you. It's a different approach in terms of backup, because in this time, in this way, we don't leverage snapshot at all. We have production site, we replicate the VMDK at the disaster recovery site as a stupid file, a stupid VMDK, and we copy the VMDK in the repository. So there is no impact in terms of snapshot, and there is no impact in terms of backup window. You can protect the VM with the journal for a few days, and you can save the VM for a long retention with this type of approach. I know that in US, there is a couple of customers that are approaching this way, even if it's not a full feature backup, because they have databases that are impacted by snapshot, so they prefer to copy the VMDK without any snapshot at the disaster recovery site. This could be an option. So you can have replication, automation, continuous data protection, and offsite backup with only one solution. And I would like to go direct to maybe question and answer. we already had some. So if you have, we are here all day, so we can talk. And I would like to show you in a few minutes, if possible, that interface. More or less. This is an environment that we have in US. As you can see, there is the status of the VPG, and we can very easily create a VPG, a virtual protection group. You have to assign only a logical name. You can assign a logical priority in terms of protection. It means that if you have any issue in terms of bandwidth, you can have different VPGs that could be less or more important for your business needs, so you can have different priority. You can select VM as you want. As I told you, all the VM that you can see at the vCenter level are available in this list. So this is a stupid example with few VMs. But if you want, you can select VMs related to services, business vision, operating system, or VIA. You can even protect the VIA if you want. So you can go directly in vCenter, select the VIA, and the VPG will be created automatically by the plugin. You can move all the VM. You can define, of course, only logically. And you can create different groups for the boot order. It's very simple, as you can see. Replication is one of the most important part of this job. I'm connected to site 1, and my peer site is site 2. Technically, I can even activate an option that is called Enable Replication to Self. So I can have here not only my peer site, but even my own site. I can replicate in the same infrastructure for any reason. Or if I have a vCenter installed at the disaster recovery site with two resource pools, one at the primary and one at the disaster recovery, I can have only one vCenter and replicate between two different sites.
Is that option to replicate to more sites than one?
It's in roadmap. For this moment, you can replicate from one site to another one, and then you can have the off-site backup that we discussed before to another one. But in the roadmap, there is the daisy chain or cascading.
Yeah. But you can have lots of sites going into one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we got 100 into one,
here, potentially, you should have 3 options. To be honest, here we have only 2, because one is the name of vCenter. The other one, you can select one specific ESX at the disaster recovery site, and we have only 2. Or you can select a resource pool. There is no resource pool configured at the disaster recovery site, so we have only these 2 types of approach. Then You can select the data store. All the data store that you can see from the vCenter at the disaster recovery site to be available. By default, all the VMDK with the journal will be created at this level, but we can change for every VM, for every VMDK, the destination. Then the journal, that could be from 1 hour to 120 hours, up to you. Let's say 8 hours. In the advanced option, you can define the size, you can define any kind of alert. There's no time to see all the features, but it's possible to manage in a very smart way. This is the alert in terms of target RPO. This is not the RPO that will be applied because it will be a continuous data protection, but this is only a kind of alert. If my checkpoints in the journal are created every, I don't know, every minute, for me could be okay. Or if I want that my checkpoint are created every 10, 20 seconds, for me 40 seconds is the limit. If there is any checkpoint that is created after 41 seconds, I will receive an alert, I will receive an email. And this alert could be from 10 seconds to 12 hours. It depends on the connection, it depends on the change rate, it depends on your business needs. Generally speaking, we can see